Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at another WoW World figure. Not long ago, I did review the Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus from WoW World. I found those at an Ollie's, and I now have an opportunity to take a look at the Carnotaurus, which, if you remember those reviews, I did state that I really wanted to find the Carnotaurus, get a hold of it, and, add it to my collection, of course, but also review it for you guys. I thought it looked really cool, and I figured out finally where you can find them. They are available on Amazon. So we now have this awesome looking Carnotaurus here to take a look at. Of course, the Carnotaurus is not accurate. That's not something that you're probably ever going to find when it comes to a figure like this, like a WoW World kind of a random dinosaur figure. It's not going to be something that we can look for as far as accuracy goes, but what I do have here is a really cool looking Carnotaurus, honestly, and anytime I can add a new Carnotaurus to my collection or review a new Carnotaurus, it's definitely a great day, especially one that looks as beastly as this. Like, it looks like something straight out of a horror movie as far as the very rough looking appearance to the figure. I actually quite like it. It's, again, not exactly what we would expect to see on an accurate Carnotaurus, but definitely a really cool, almost terrifying looking Carnotaurus. But you can definitely see that the figure looks pretty cool. As far as the box art goes, we have WoW World right here on the bottom left-hand side, Carnotaurus right there in the center, and then on the right-hand side it does state that the mouth opens, the limbs move. And then if we take a look here at the back, we could see the other figures that are included in this line, which would be the Tyrannosaurus Rex and Velociraptor, which we have looked at previously. And then there is also a Dilophosaurus and a Carnotaurus. We now have the Carnotaurus here, and I believe the Dilophosaurus should be next as far as my review goes, so we'll be taking a look at this one very soon. But I'm really interested in this figure, getting it out of the package, taking a look at it, so let's go ahead, break it out right now, and do just that. And then here is our Carnotaurus out of the packaging, and honestly, it really is quite awesome. I mean, we can definitely see that there are a few screw holes, and the battery compartment is right here in the front, which isn't my first choice as far as where we should put those things, and screw holes are always kind of a downside if you ask me, but other than those small issues, I actually quite like the figure overall. It definitely has a really neat appearance, and they've actually put quite a bit of paint application to this. There's quite a few different tones of color, giving it that very dark looking color scheme overall. Again, a potentially realistic looking color scheme, but at the same time adding some elements of realism as far as quite a few different tones of color within the figure. But I'm really interested to see this thing up close, so let's go ahead, get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, again, we have one of the fiercest, meanest looking head sculpts for a Carnotaurus I may have ever seen. It looks so evil, and definitely not a friendly Carnotaurus, definitely not the type of Carnotaurus I would like to encounter out in the wild, even though I really would love to encounter one. But this one definitely does not look happy, and you can see that the actual texturing of the face does look pretty decent, honestly. There is quite a bit going on as far as like scale, detail, and lots of varying sizes of scales all throughout the entire head sculpt of the Carnotaurus. You can also see the teeth are painted, although they are a little sloppy as far as the actual paintwork goes, but I really quite like the teeth. I think the teeth are fairly decently sculpted, and you can actually see how they like connect to the gums, each and every tooth sculpted individually and connecting to the gums. I think it looks really cool the way that they've done that. We can open the mouth. It does have an articulated jaw. The tongue, if I can get a good shot here, without, see, the backdrop kind of gets in my way here at times. But the tongue inside the mouth here is painted with a kind of a bright red, and you could see, well, maybe not so much a bright red. It's like a blood red, actually, I should say, and it does have a glossy appearance to it. I'm not a huge fan of that type of a look on the tongues of dinosaur figures. However, on a figure like this, you could just potentially say that that's some blood inside the mouth on the tongue. Maybe that's actually what it's meant to be, but I'm pretty sure that's just meant to be the coloration of the tongue. And it's not perfectly painted, but it doesn't look terrible either. I'm just not personally a huge fan of red like that on tongues, but again, it doesn't look terrible either. And you can also see some detailing here on the inside of the mouth, up there on the upper jaw. Definitely some nice detail in there. Nothing that's incredible, but it doesn't look bad up there either. And again, the jaw articulates actually quite nicely. You can open it pretty wide, and he looks somehow even more disturbingly mean the further out that the jaw gets as far as opening. Like, he just looks so much more vicious now. You can also see that the horns up there on the top of the head of the Carnotaurus are painted, and they're painted with a silver. That personally isn't, again, my first choice as far as coloration goes, but I also don't think it looks terrible either, especially considering how exaggerated the Carnotaurus is in general. Silver horns aren't exactly out of the realm of possibility for a nightmarishly monstrous beast like this, I guess. You can also see that the eyes are painted, and although they kind of, if you look at it from certain directions, it almost looks like they're a little sloppy, but they actually don't look all that sloppy. When you get nice and close, you can see that the eyes are painted pretty decently, painted with a goldish coloration given a black pupil, a kind of a slit-like black pupil, similar to the velociraptors from Jurassic Park, but you can see that the eye paint is a little bit overly applied. It's definitely a little thick, and it kind of runs underneath the eye area, but I don't think it looks terrible. You can see the nostrils are sculpted out up here, and they've actually done a really good job as far as the paintwork goes. You can see quite a few different tones of color with like some different variations of browns, like a reddish brown, and then there's like a darker gray, and there's a really nice dry brushing with like a light blue or a light gray over top of a lot of the different areas of the figure, and it makes the detail pop quite nicely. So they have done a pretty good job as far as that goes. Same deal over here. The eye is painted pretty much exactly the same way. Maybe a little bit sloppier over here, but I think it just might be the shape of the eye itself that actually makes the eye paint look kind of sloppy, because honestly, looking at it here in person, it doesn't look all that bad. It's not too sloppy overall. I think it's just the shape of the eye that kind of somehow makes it look sloppy. Again, you can see the horn over here does seem to have a little bit of like some extra plastic hanging off of it right there that we now have gone away, thankfully. And we can also actually see the ears are sculpted out on this as well, so a lot of really nice detailing has been included on this figure. And you can see that the underside to the dinosaur has a nice grayish coloration here on the lower jaw, and that continues to run down the course of the body. If we take a look at the actual body up here, you can see some of those very trademark kind of osteoderms or ridges that you see often associated with Carnotaurus. They pick up right there at the top of the neck, and then they run down the course of the body. You can also see that darker coloration. It's kind of like a dark gray or a black, and then they've dry brushed that light blue or light gray over top of it to make it pop really nicely. And you can see that starts out up there at the top of the body, at the top of the neck, and we have like this reddish brown coloration here on the side. And you can also see some other variations of brown creeping through in certain areas. You have some nice skin folding and stuff going on here in the neck region of our Carnotaurus. As we move back into the body, you can continue to see those kind of osteoderms, those ridge-like osteoderms run along the side of the dinosaur. You can also see the ridges up here on the top of the spinal column look really quite nice, and that dry brushing has really brought the detailing of the figure out quite beautifully throughout pretty much every area of this Carnotaurus. And then you have the really nicely sculpted arms. Like, I actually really quite like that. And you can see some nice scoots down both the arm and the fingers right there. And then you can also see the nails are painted with a black, and they almost genuinely look sharp, which is pretty cool to see. This arm does actually articulate, so you can move it forward like the other arm is, so now he looks like he just really wants a hug. And even though he's kind of a grumpy dinosaur, he's just looking for love. But you can also put the arm back in a more natural position. I don't think you can do that with that side, because I believe that activates the light and sound feature. Moving back here into the body, again, lots of really nice scale detail is found throughout the stomach region. Again, lots of different varying sizes of scales. I like how it starts out kind of small and then just increases in size the further back into the stomach you get. And you can see more of those osteoderms kind of picking up here and there throughout that area. Some nice skin wrinkles and skin folds going on down here in the lower part of the stomach. Coming back up here, you can continue to see how beautiful that dry brushing is, and there's a lot of really nice, kind of like an armored type of an appearance to the upper side of the Carnotaurus, which is something that you do tend to see from time to time on Carnotaurus figures. And then moving down here into the leg, again, lots of detailing throughout the leg sculpt of this. You can see the thigh does sport some pretty decent looking muscle tone, but there's like a lot of osteoderms and stuff included within that area. You can see the kneecap is present right there. Some more really cool detailing as we move down the length of the leg. You can see the calf muscle is really nicely defined. Again, some more like larger scales, almost scoot-like scales there on the calf area as well. And then moving down into the foot looks pretty cool. You have some more scoots down the course of the toes, nicely painted nails with a black. The black does have a glossy appearance, and you can actually see that there is a dew claw present, and it is painted, although you can see that on the opposing foot there, the dew claw does have a little bit of sloppiness to the paintwork. And then coming back up here into the tail, again, some more of those kind of ridge-like osteoderms run the course of the tail. You can see that alternate variation of brown showing up quite nicely out here on the tail, and then you run out the length of the tail. It does have a nice curve, slightly to the dinosaur's left, as well as a downward slant at the tip of the tail. Continues to have lots of osteoderms, the nice ridgeline along the back of the tail, and then here on the underside you can see that as well as got some pretty decent looking detail to it, honestly. Like, it has a really cool appearance to the larger scale effect here on the underside of our Carnotaurus. You can see some holes in the feet because it was actually connected with screws. You have to unscrew it from the box, which definitely shows you that they mean business as far as keeping that dinosaur in the box in store. But you can see some decent detailing here to the underside of the feet of your Carnotaurus as well. And then looking at this side, again, some more nice skin wrinkling and everything going on here in the neck, some more of those kind of ridge-like osteoderms, quite a bit of color variation to the neck region of our Carnotaurus. As we move down the length of the body, you can see some more beautiful detailing here in the stomach region. I'm honestly impressed with this figure as far as the detailing aspect goes. I would say that this one here is probably the best that I've seen from WoW World so far. Very impressively done, and you can see that the arms and everything look really nice. Again, they almost appear to have like a dark wash, but I think it's basically just been dry brushed. But it's really cool the way it looks, and you can again see the nails are painted pretty nicely with a nice black coloration. And then you do have an area here on the side of the dinosaur, kind of an opening, and that's where the lights kind of come out of, and I think in the mouth, the throat area as well, but I'm not too sure. We'll have to give that a shot here in a little bit. Again, the detailing aspect on this side is very similar, of course, to what we had just seen on the previous side, but it looks pretty good overall, pretty much as nice as we had seen on the other side. I wish we didn't have the battery compartment out here and this area as well. Personally, I would prefer not to have the light feature on dinosaurs, but of course these do appeal to kids. They are more meant for children, so it's totally understandable that that would be there, as we are trying to, again, appeal to kids, and they would love something like that. And we can again see the nice muscle tone here in the thigh as well as the calf region, the knee elaborated right here in the front of the leg. You can continue to see some more really nice dry brushing down the course of the body, and then that foot sculpt looks pretty good over here. Nicely painted nails yet again, and you can see the dew claw now on the opposing leg, on the opposing foot. And then moving back up here into the tail, we run out the length of the tail. Again, just like we had seen on the previous side, it looks pretty good overall. So this is definitely a really cool Carnotaurus. I actually really quite like the very grumpy look of this figure. Now, as far as articulation on our Carnotaurus goes, we do have the articulated jaw, which we have already taken a look at previously. We have articulation here on the opposing arm. You can see it kind of wiggling back there. There is some articulation on this arm, but that's going to activate the light and sound feature, so we're not going to press that quite yet. And then you do have articulation in the legs. It actually moves really, really smoothly. Like, there are no issues at all as far as the movement in the legs goes. And then you also have a swivel tail, so lots and lots of articulation. Now, if I can get it back up there, lots and lots of articulation to be found on the Carnotaurus. And then we have the light and sound feature. Now, this is the only thing I think that I could say that I don't really like about the WoW World figures, and that is the fact that they use a Godzilla roar for the sound of the dinosaur. And personally, I would prefer some sort of a more of like a dinosaur type of a sound, not a Godzilla sound. But we'll go ahead and do it here anyway. So it definitely lights up in both the mouth and the stomach region. And of course, again, Godzilla roar. Not my first choice as far as sounds for a dinosaur goes, but at least kids will be able to pick out the sound of a Godzilla roar, or at least I would think so anyway. So it's something that should appeal to children, but personally, even if they had taken like a Jurassic Park T-Rex roar, would have been better if you ask me, but still not, you know, the end of the world, because the figure does look pretty cool overall. And then as far as a length goes for our Carnotaurus, it is quite large. For a length, you're looking at right around the 14-inch range, or about the 35.5, closing in on 36 centimeter area. So it's definitely pretty big. And then for a height, you are looking at about 5 inches, or around the 13 centimeter area. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Dilophosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our WoW World Carnotaurus. And next to these guys here, you can definitely see what I was saying as far as size goes. There is some pretty significant size to this Carnotaurus. Probably one of the bigger Carnotaurus figures as far as the style of a figure goes that I have in my collection. And hopefully next to these guys right here, you should have a pretty good idea of that. So this WoW World Carnotaurus is definitely a pretty cool figure overall. Initially, when I was introduced to WoW World, it was with the Velociraptor, and I wasn't super impressed with that figure. It wasn't really, the best figure to start with as far as the WoW World line goes. And then I was introduced, of course, to the Tyrannosaurus, and I definitely like the T-Rex quite a bit more than the Raptor. Now this Carnotaurus is definitely even nicer than the T-Rex, so overall I'm really starting to become quite fond of these WoW World figures the more into the line I go, and the next one will be the Dilophosaurus, and I'm quite confident I'm going to like that one as well. But the Carnotaurus here that we have looks really cool, honestly, a very different look for a Carnotaurus. You don't often see them look like this. I mean, it obviously resembles a Carnotaurus, but it's definitely got its own unique look at the same time. It has a very, very grumpy appearance to it, and definitely doesn't look happy, and I actually quite like that aspect. It almost looks like a kind of a movie monster style Carnotaurus, something you would see in a horror film. If a Carnotaurus was released on a small town somewhere and was just wreaking havoc in the woods, this would probably be your villain. He definitely does look quite vicious and mean overall as far as the head sculpt goes. Again, accuracy, not even something you can take into question as far as this goes, but considering they're just dinosaur toys made for kids, you don't really need accuracy. So it's not something you really need to take into consideration because it's not something they're striving for. But as far as having a really cool looking Carnotaurus, I definitely think they did a good job as far as that aspect goes, and it does sport some pretty nice detail overall. Like, it is really nicely detailed for something like this, much better than your normal kind of a dinosaur toy would be, and it definitely has a very cool appearance to it as far as the actual detailing aspect goes and the fine detailing aspect, as well as the paintwork. I actually quite like the paintwork a lot, sporting quite a few different tones of coloration with like different shades of browns, darker grays, lighter grays, almost like bluish grays actually. You also have like a reddish brown, and some even lighter grays. Like, there's a lot going on as far as the paintwork goes, and I think the way they've applied it looks pretty good overall. There's no real sloppiness for the most part that I can see. The eyes kind of look like they sort of are sloppy, but at the same time they're really not. It's very strange. The teeth are a little sloppy as far as the paintwork goes, as is the tongue inside the mouth, but other than that, I don't really see too much sloppiness as far as the paintwork goes, and for the most part, I think it looks pretty cool. And then you also have some articulation, which is really fun as well, and then a light and sound feature that I think would definitely appeal to kids, not so much collectors like myself, but kids would definitely love that feature of the figure. So if this is something you are interested in, make sure you check the description, as I will have a link right there for you to check this out on Amazon, and you can pick one up for yourself. So head on over to Amazon through the link in the description, and make sure that if you are interested in this very cool WoW World Carnotaurus, you pick it up, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe before you do, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.